So here I'm doing just 4 small breads. I like to eat them fresh, so I do them often. So 200 grams of flour, then you add a pinch of salt. When I was in Tuscany, I really loved the way the bread was, and I realized just years later that's because I don't put a lot of salt in it. So since then I try to put a little bit less than required, but please don't put more than a quarter of teaspoon. You'll find out why. So 2.5 grams of dry yeast. So you just mix that as well. Any type of yeast, any type of flour, any type of salt, you go for it. Now we have some warm water coming up, not cold, but not too warm either, because that kills the bacteria or whatever is in a dry yeast. Now, when you start mixing, you might notice that it gets dry. So it needs to be dry. You will be tempted to add more water, but I suggest we just work with what you have. And you probably have better tools than me, but I think this is worthwhile. This is so that you don't have to do all this kneading for 20 minutes. So it's just for a couple of minutes. So we're keeping an eye on the clock at the top left here to make sure that we are on time. So here I'm just going for it. Yeah, I'm just mixing and mixing and mixing. That's it. I'm not touching it with my fingers yet because it's very gluey, it's very sticky. That's a price to pay for not having to knead, is that it gets very gluey, and I'll show you how to wash the dish later on. Washing is the worst part of cooking in my opinion, and I'm sure in yours too. So here I'm putting what we call a glad wrap here, or cling wrap. And I will leave that in a place that is relatively warm. I want to make sure that it doubles in volume at least. So if it's in winter, you might want to put that close to some type of heating. So here you wait 1 or 2 hours. So you need to have it double in volume. So depending on how hot it is, obviously. Here I just put some oil on a tissue, and I'm just gonna oil the oven tray, and I add a little bit of flour. You can use also an oven paper if you want, but I prefer to do it this way. I just love the feeling of removing the bread from the tray, and with this it's very easy to do and very easy to clean. So now that's a tricky part. So for that part we don't want to be too fussy. You don't want to do a perfect bread here. So, and you definitely don't want to do what I'm doing here with my fingers. I just wanted to show you what not to do. The bread will naturally come to a beautiful shape. So you don't have to have nice round shapes, as I was saying. So don't use your finger. Instead, use anything else, maybe even a spoon. I just grab here the first spoon that I found, and it works beautifully. It works well. It will always be gluey. That's what we have to work with, but it doesn't matter, because it's just a one-off. No more kneading is required once that is done. So here I'm just doing 4 small breads. That's it. Putting this aside, I'm adding a little bit of flour on top. So for me, it's more for the looks of it. It doesn't really change the taste. I think it presents just a little bit better. So here I'm putting a tray in the oven underneath with some water, so that will help with the crusting. And that's what I was telling you about the washing. I just put water in my bowl. And this is, can you see the crust here? The crust is very brown, and that's because of the water that I put at the bottom of the oven. And look how easy it is to remove from the tray. And we keep an eye on the clock. We are doing well. We have 30 seconds to spare, more or less. And that's it. So they haven't become very big. That's because I like them this way. You could add just a tiny little bit more of yeast if you want them to really blow up. But this is the final result. Look at the way it's cracked. And that's it for a 5-minute recipe.